Hey, Scott.
Hi.
If you picked one thing that's changed significantly in 20 years, what would that be?
Happy to say that a lot hasn't changed. A lot of things we've always done have remained consistent over the last 20 years. We continue to have the same investment philosophy, mentorship, collaborative approach, continue to support our management teams with our resources group. But obviously we've grown a lot in terms of fund size, in terms of size of investment, in terms of the number of colleagues we have. So I think the one thing that's changed the most for me is the resources group. When I joined in 2002, the resources group didn't exist. We had Larry Green, who was supporting our companies from an operational perspective, but that was really it. And today we have over 60 colleagues that are focused on supporting our teams and can provide support in a whole different way, which I think is the biggest change over the last 20 years.
It certainly is a big change. The resources group, as you know, is now our biggest population of people in our 180-strong group. One of the other things I think about is, in addition to the resources group and the strengths it brings to us, is the number of people we now have on the investment team, 50 full-time people, and the ability that creates for specialization. You've spent a ton of time doing everything, but more recently, a lot of time in industrials and even there in specialty chemicals. How did you become interested in that? And tell me about that journey.
Yeah, sure. So I have a finance background, but I've always been interested in industrials, more of a general curiosity about how things work, how things are made, things I don't think about every day. And that curiosity got me interested in industrials and chemicals specifically. I honestly hadn't thought a lot about since my AP chemistry class in high school until I think 2007 when we invested in MECS. And as you know, MECS designed sulfuric acid plants, and then they provided products that went into those chemical plants. And it was a great company, great technology, great business, and it got me thinking about whether there were other chemical companies that could be interesting for us. And so I started meeting with chemical bankers, industry executives, going to industry conferences, and eventually found that there were actually a lot of chemical companies that were potentially interesting investment opportunities, and that's led to a number of additional investments for us.
Well, you certainly wowed me back then. I'm sure you remember as we were doing that negotiation, I walked into your office and you started talking molecules, and I said to you something like, Scott, that's all really good, but I'm not going to understand that. Is this a deal we should do? And you said, yeah, I think we should.
And it was.
And so I went in there and negotiated. We got it done, and it was, and you made it great. So kudos to you. So in 20 years, what keeps you excited day to day now?
Yeah, I think I'd answer that in a couple of different ways. I think one is a little bit more of a general private equity answer, and it's the intellectual curiosity. As you know, we only make a few investments a year, and so most of what we look at we won't actually buy. So you need to get excited about learning about businesses, getting to know what makes them tick, whether they're good investments, whether they can grow, and that to me is exciting even if we don't actually make the investment. I think the other thing for me is really about American Securities specifically, and it's about the people. When I got here in 2002, I knew that everybody was focused on my success. I could tell that from day one. And as an example, I had a mentor early on in the first investment opportunity that I worked on, which that closed in 2002. I was flying back from Texas with this principal on our team, and he gave me a purchase agreement before the flight, and he said, read the purchase agreement and then we'll talk about it when we land. And we had to go back to the office after we landed because we had a lot of work to do. And I read this purchase agreement on the plane, and it's gibberish to me. I don't know, I've never read a purchase agreement before. I don't know what to look for. I don't understand the words. And when we land, he asked me, do you have any questions? And I say, I don't even know where to start. And so he says, okay, let me help you. And for the next hour and a half, maybe even 2 hours, he spent the time walking through that purchase agreement, helping me understand what was important, how to read it together. And it was something he didn't need to do because I wasn't going to be responsible for negotiating the purchase agreement. But it was very interesting for me that he was willing to do that. And that stuck with me. And it's something that I try to replicate all the time. And I think that focus on mentorship, that focus on collaboration, on making everybody better in our firm is what excites me every day.
You've always exhibited that, learn everything you can about so many aspects of our business, now encyclopedic really. Tell us what we're looking for in deals. What consistency or themes do you see?
Yeah, I think we're looking for businesses that are truly market-leading businesses that are differentiated. And differentiation can be in a lot of different ways. It could be manufacturing know-how, intellectual property. It could be just a long-term contract, but something to see why those businesses are special today and will continue to be special. And when I think about the investment committee, I think our mandate is to really drive decision-making, which not surprisingly has gotten harder as we've gotten bigger. But I think it's a natural extension of what we've always done. We still have the great group debates. We still talk about every opportunity together. But as we've gotten bigger, it's harder to drive those debates to decisions. And so when I think about the mandate for the investment committee, I really think it's about taking the collective views of the broader team and then the individual views of the investment committee members to drive to that decision. And it's just a lot easier to do that in an intimate setting.
Well, you certainly are a big part of the success we've had with that 4-person team on the investment committee for the last 4 years. Just like there's no perfect deal, every deal has strengths and weaknesses. I've certainly learned over the 30 years here that there's no perfect internal policy. And so you also lead what we call our C3 committee, which stands for cross-functional collaboration and culture. What are some of the topics that get discussed over the last bunch of years? Certainly as many with COVID. Share a little bit about what that C3 committee is up to.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so that committee was formed right before COVID, which may have been fortuitous because we spent the first probably year focused on COVID-related topics. At first, that was how do we return safely to the office, but also remain connected to the firm. Then it was how do we maintain culture while people are working remotely. But we've done a lot more since then. We have an intense focus on our feedback culture, and we've implemented new processes to make sure that we're providing feedback at all levels of the firm. After we were certified a great place to work, which is a great accomplishment, we focused on some of the survey results where we scored less well, fun being one of those, and that's something we've been focused on since then. But the way I think about it is culture has been such a critical factor, in my view, in our historical success, and I think will continue to be a critical factor in our future success. And as we've gotten bigger, we have to work really hard to maintain that, and I think C3 is set up well to go do that.
So on that future, what excites you about the future? The last 20 years have been amazing. What's to come?
Well, the last 20 years have been really exciting, but I am even more optimistic about the future. I think our strategy is differentiated. I think our focus on those special businesses that I talked about before will really serve us well in an uncertain world. I think our collaboration, our culture, our focus on mentorship will serve us well, and then I believe the resources group is truly differentiated in helping our portfolio companies. But at the end of the day, I think the most important thing and the thing I'm most excited about is our people. I think we have a great focus on talent. I think our team today is the best it's ever been. I think that's the team that's going to lead us to win in the future, and I'm excited about winning.
Thanks for taking time today.
Thank you.